Simon, a trainee teacher at the Hunter Institute, has been handing out a few lessons in the boxing ring for the last 11 years. At 23 years of age and now a professional, Simon has won 11 of his 16 pro fights. One of those victories, the New South Wales light welterweight title last July. Despite his impressive record, ringside commentators often comment he doesn't look tough enough to be a fighter.
It's not so much me baby face, it's just me plain looking. That's what I think. I get in the ring and they usually have comments to say about I look scared or worried. And
Simon says he's never scared, it's simply his determination to win that forms his expressions. Fighting on the Fenwick Bill in Melbourne tomorrow night, with a possible worldwide TV audience, doesn't faze him at all. The Wall's End boxer says he's simply concentrating on his opponent, Melbourne's Ross Richmond, a boxer with 7 pro fights and 7 wins.
He's about 6 foot tall, maybe a little bit bigger, very tall and gangly and that, like a praying mantis. So I'd say it'd be a job of getting inside him. When we get inside him, I'll break his ribs.
If his predictions come true, Simon hopes to fight for the national light welterweight title sometime next year. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Todd Wilshire, Stephen Davies and Chris Watson give the program a huge local flavour, and they will have their work cut out by a super confident English pack. In the first test in Perth, it was victory to the visitors, 61 points to 47. And headed by the experienced Jeremy Doncaster, England will be tough to beat again. Today, Mark Lorham, Steve Schofield and Sean Wilson tested the track and liked what they saw. For Wilson, it's a return to the arena after a 2-year absence. On the last occasion, he tangled heatedly with tomorrow night's opponent, Stephen Davies.
It's all in the past now, I think. We seem to have a little incident over there and, I got a bit upset and, a lot of people can remember it. That's why I've changed the colour of my leather since last year, since 2 years ago. I didn't want no one to remember me. But it was, I was racing and I was like a little bit on heat and he shouldn't have done what he did, but I think it's sorted out.
An interested spectator at today's practice session was youngster Todd Wilshire, who will line up against the English. Wilshire knows the track backwards, but the 7 soloists from the old dart will feel at home.
The English team can ride the track because it's very much like an English track, and the Australians can ride the track because they've all rode in England and rode here, so I think it's going to be a very good meeting. I think there's going to be a few incidents, I think it's going to be close. I think it could be one of the best test matches we have in Australia here.
It's the biggest image change BHP has undergone since the 1920s. Over the next 12 months, Newcastle architects Eckford Johnson Partners will coordinate the industrial giant screening, using millions of litres of paint and thousands of rows of trees to soften BHP's harsh image.
Stage 1 is undertaken at the moment. If you go to Kooragang Island and look back, you'll see that some of the painting has been in fact started. That will be the major side from Kooragang Island. Stage 1 will also encompass the main gates and some other ancillary buildings.
All the BHP buildings lining the river have over the years been covered with a thick coat of dust. They'll be cleaned and then painted in soft green and red colours. As well, at the main gates, a large pond will be made with extensive landscaping. Both programs are aimed at making the most of what BHP already has, rather than trying to hide it.
Can't plant it out, so to speak. And we're looking at picking out elements in BHP that are in themselves architectural elements.
Stage 2 of the facelift is at least a year off, but it is known it will be aimed at improving the traffic problems within the plant and continuing the landscaping.
Wendy was up against Lisa Anderson of Florida and was already behind after being penalised for causing interference on 2 waves. With 5 minutes of the heat remaining, Wendy caught a high-scoring ride, and as she attempted a floating re-entry for maximum points, she felt the board press up against her, forcing her left knee outwards.
I did a float and came down with my knee the wrong way, and it made a real loud crack, and it just went kind of numb. I don't know what's wrong.
So how does it feel now?
It's a lot better, but I can't turn my foot either way.
It was obvious as she struggled to the beach that something drastic was wrong, and aid was on the spot quickly. Wendy is a tearaway leader in this year's World Championship, and with only one event after Newcastle, is almost assured of the title. For Wendy, however, it's a little confusing at the moment. So how does this look for your defending your world title?
I don't know. We'll just see what happens.
In September, Hexham Engineering, the Newcastle company that had been the showpiece for industrial harmony in Australia, suddenly revealed it was on the verge of collapse. Already with severe financial problems, it was embroiled in a bitter industrial dispute. It was no surprise when just a few weeks later letters went out to staff advising them Hexham Engineering was finished. Workers were advised they could work out their time and then finish up. Already at the plant, it's a vastly different picture to the thriving business it was 6 months back. Many of the staff are gone and production levels are almost zero. But now it seems for at least one part of Hexham Engineering there is a saviour. It comes in the form of Newcastle Tool and Die, a high-tech machining company. The company had been responsible for developing machining methods in the suspension equipment section at Hexham. According to Alan Douglas Clare, governing director at Tool and Die, what was developed out there was far too valuable and rare to go to waste. For an undisclosed price known to be more than $500,000, Tool and Die has bought up the suspension equipment section. Already it's keeping 7 people in work. But Mr Douglas Clare said he expects to expand the operation over the next 4 months to expand the workforce to 20. The Hexham plant is up for sale, but Mr Douglas Clare said plans had already been made to relocate the operation, possibly to Cardiff. The new business will operate under the name Reliance Hexham.
"17-year-old Aboriginal youth Dermot Pigeon was found hanged in a cell at Maitland Jail last month. The apparent suicide sparked an immediate inquiry and a departmental review of the transfer process, which moved the youth from the now closed Endeavour House Juvenile Detention Centre to the maximum security prison. Since the death, Mrs Chadwick has taken over full responsibility for all transfers of juveniles to adult detention centres. However, she says the introduction of new guidelines controlling the transfers isn't a reflection on the previous system.
I'm certainly not saying that anyone was right or wrong or remiss. That's a matter of a coronial inquiry, and I don't want to preempt that. But I think I would be remiss if, having had that incident happen while I was Minister, if I didn't ensure that the system was as tight as possible and that the welfare of a young person was taken into proper account, and that I personally ensured that that happened in future.
And Mrs Chadwick says the tighter transfer controls may require even more changes.
What I am intending to do is to monitor the new guidelines. If I still think that there is a need for further change, then that change will be made.
The day began on a disappointing note for the locals, with Merryweather's Nicky Wood bundled out against defending champion Damien Hardman. As in previous years, the swell picked up for finals day. Nicky found some good sections of green water and managed some controlled moves, but Hardman saw a chance to clinch the heat in the last minute. The only consolation for Nicky was consolidation for a top 16 spot on the world rankings. The local derby then took to the water, Stockton's Simon Law against Merryweather's Luke Egan. As the wind gusted up to 50 kilometres an hour, the surface became bumpy. Egan, unlike previous heats, hit his straps early, setting up plenty of floaters and the odd backhand Rio to take him through to the quarters. Hardman was waiting for Egan and revelled in the chance to try and eliminate another Novocastrian. Egan wasn't about to take Hardman's attitude lying down and set about carving up the 1.5 metre swell. But as the heat wore on, Hardman proved more consistent and was a clear leader. In a desperate move, Egan again tried to snatch the heat in the last minute, as he has done all week, even slipping but still managing to surge toward the beach. But to no avail, Hardman went on to meet Tom Carroll in the semi-final. Carroll gave Hardman some of his own back, while Derek Ho made the final by defeating Stuart Bedford-Brown. 25-year-old Derek Ho from Hawaii met Tom Carroll, 3 years his senior in the final, and got off to a good start. But Carroll rode like a man possessed, picking up the wave of the day, scoring 9s from nearly all the judges to record a 28 out of a possible 30. Carroll committed himself to every wave that came his way, while Ho seemed shaken and dropped away under the pressure. Carroll went on to claim the title, including a $15,000 winner's cheque and 2,000 points on the ASP World Ratings. Darren Curtis for NBN News.
Hunter Valley coal mines detonate 60,000 tonnes of explosives a year, 1/4 of Australia's total use. This makes the region one of ICI's biggest customers, big enough for the organisation to need to include 4 of its Hunter Valley scientific and engineering staff in its international research project on how to fine-tune its explosive product development. The local phase of that project began at Nelson Bay today, where 22 delegates from Britain, Africa, Canada and Australia talked about what explosives need to be able to do by the year 2000. The major component of explosives is ammonium nitrate. It's been used for more than 30 years in explosive blasts and is now the subject of high technology research.
And this is a very sophisticated process, so sophisticated that we're using equipment that is used in the US space program for taking up into shuttles and looking at the formation of metal crystals in weightless conditions. And we're using that equipment, the same equipment that's been supplied to NASA, to study ammonium nitrate formation in prills.
ICI says its research will lead to better explosives which can produce a predictable sized rock, which for the mining industry means easier handling and a significant saving on equipment.
In May this year, the electricity supply to the light was cut off from the mainland due to a cable fault. The Department of Transport and Communications decided to replace the 122-year-old beacon with a solar-powered non-rotating light. Since then, a number of boats have come to grief on the Bombora and rock shelf at the base of the point. Only 2 weeks ago, 2 fishermen who have worked the area for years ran their vessel aground, narrowly escaping with their lives before the boat sank. The fishermen placed the blame squarely on the lack of a sweeping light to warn of the danger. Today, the fishermen's boat in dry dock bears testimony to the peril of the Bombora. Commercial shipping companies told the federal government that they don't need the light, so the safety of recreational fishermen falls in the lap of the state government. Local residents fearing someone could lose their life during the coming holidays and lack of government action are rallying together to raise the funds to install a brighter, rotating beacon. However, the new light will cost an estimated $30,000. Local businessman Peter Bennett says a meeting has been convened for tonight to discuss ways of raising the money.
Tonight really is a way to try and sort out a way that we can raise the money. The different organisations go back to their clubs, go back to their organisations and work out how they can help us.
Tonight's meeting will be held in the Nelson Bay Golf Club starting at 8 o'clock.
The incredible support of Novocastrians for the Frigate contract was recognised by many, including Australia's Treasurer and Prime Minister. Less recognised, though, were the people behind the scenes who got that support movement off the ground.
Because from a very small beginning, They generated an enthusiasm for the support for the Frigate project that has never been seen before in Newcastle.
3 Wallsend businessmen, Colin Russell, Terry Murray and Jeff Pendlebury, decided to tell the politicians Newcastle wanted the contract by raising 181,000 signatures and 40,000 signatures on a special Frigate bus. In accepting the Businessmen's Club award, Terry Murray said the community deserved all the credit.
We were nothing more than the spark that really lit a grass fire that spread through the valley.
The 3 men join an impressive list of winners, including the BHP, Richard Owens and Carrington Slipways.
Waving placards and chanting anti-government slogans, the 60-plus protesters made their message more than clear to the horde of traffic travelling Busy Lake Road this afternoon. The supporters of Glendale Public School say the state government has done everything but make a public statement to ensure the school closes at the end of the 1990 school year.
The new children for kindergarten, all the letters are going to them to say to those people not to come to the school, to enrol them in another school. Also the preschools in the area have been informed there's no kindergarten here next year. So it's somebody's lying. There has to be an ultimate agenda to what they're doing.
Today's protest was a bid to make the community aware of the school's plight and had the wholehearted support not only of the adults but of the children as well.
So I've been here for a long time and I just don't want it to close down.
What sort of things are you going to do to try and help it stay open?
Fight.
Education Minister Terry Metherell has agreed the school is under review for closure at the end of next year, but insists at this stage it's nothing definite. And despite the gloomy prospects, the school's committee has done everything in its power to keep it alive. A meeting of parents and citizens at Hamilton on Monday night, representing schools throughout the Hunter, moved that a deputation be organised to meet with Mr Metherell to lobby on behalf of Glendale and 5 other valley schools also facing closure. In the meantime, Glendale supporters say they'll continue their protests with the possibility of a march along the suburb's streets in the coming weeks.
Merciful to these travellers, protect them as they travel. Bless them with peace and joy as they free you from all anxiety.
It's been 6 hard months of training and planning for the Bike for Cancer crew, but all seemed in high spirits when they gathered appropriately at the base's physical fitness quarters this morning for the journey to Adelaide. The RAAF sent its first team out in 1987, inspired by the personal tragedy of one of its members.
The idea came about 2 years ago when one of the members, who a fair bit of his family had been struck with cancer, came up with an idea for the RAAF to conduct such an appeal, especially considering a lot of RAAF members have been affected either directly or indirectly.
The first trip raised $53,000, way and above all expectations. Already early collections have raised $13,000 from the Newcastle community, including $4,000 from the base itself, and organisers are confident they'll gather much more through sheer determination.
We basically beg, borrow and steal. It's the best way we found is to actually go out in the streets or through the pubs and hotels and thrust a tin in front of a person's face and ask, will you donate for cancer?
The journey, beginning in Adelaide on Sunday, is 2,100 kilometres long and will chart a course through 18 towns, ending at Newcastle Town Hall at 3 p.m. on December 15. After a recent cycle team tragedy in South Australia, safety has been a paramount concern in this ride. As a result, 4 support vehicles will accompany the riders, and strategies have been adopted to ensure the cyclists do not encounter problems with traffic.
At 20 years of age, Jason Goulding stands 6 foot 2 inches tall and weighs in at a hefty 17 stone, and he's sure to instil some fear into opposition President's Cup forward packs this year. Jason will play for the Knights on a unique amateur permit for 12 months, which enables the New Zealand Rugby League to retain control of his talent. Peter Dunnage was putting him through some strenuous weight training today to trim a few kilos off his immense frame, but he's finding the training a bit different from what he experienced in New Zealand.
It's just as hard, but you train 4 times a week here. Back home was only twice, and they start a lot earlier here.
One thing he's not minding at all is the temperature.
Yeah, it was really hot over here. Back home, when I was working in a steel mill, had to heat up our hands with the gas torch and that.
James Goulding was outstanding for the Knights in '89 and was selected to tour England with the Kiwis, but a broken bone in his right hand forced him home. But thankfully, he's on the mend.
It's getting better now, like I've had it for 7 weeks, got another week, and hopefully I'll be back on the field running around, pushing weights with the rest of the guys. Like I am running around with them, that's about it. But I like to be doing weights at the same time.
And what about little brother Jason?
I recommended him, and you could go a long way playing for the Knights, and it'll do me proud anyway.
The same happy, friendly chatter filled the walls of the Hamilton Red Cross Centre today that has filled the lives of hundreds of the hunters' sick and lonely elderly folk. It was generated by the volunteers of the Telephone Security Service. More than 120 of them gathered to celebrate 75 years of the Red Cross in Australia. Since its formation several years ago, the service has grown in strength and numbers to become one of the most important services offered by the Red Cross in the region. More than 300 men and women are involved, each putting in a call every morning to a nominated elderly resident who lives alone and is considered medically at risk. It offers a vital check on the person's well-being and, just as importantly, a contact with the outside world.
Some ladies love to have a chat. They chat on, and I think, it's the only chat they have all day. And we feel we have done something.
And there have been times when I've been really down and out and thought there's no way up. And the little voice at the other end that I'm supposed to cheer up is cheering me up.
Today's luncheon was a chance for the Red Cross to repay in some small way the service done for them by the volunteers and offered the workers themselves a chance to get together and swap notes. It was also a day of celebration out at the Mayfield Nursing Home, where Hannah Simpson cut her birthday cake for the 104th time. Born in 1885, Hannah moved to Newcastle from Northern Ireland in 1951. A former nurse, farm worker and mother of one, she was joined by her 2 grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren and 1 great-great-granddaughter today to celebrate her birth date. Hannah is far and above the oldest resident at the nursing home, and according to staff at the home, despite her age, has no trouble reminiscing about her young days as a girl in Ireland.